Good afternoon, guys. So today's video I'm going to talk you through everything you need to know about broad beans, and I've got a video here which I've been filming throughout the last sort of 6 months, and we're going to go from seed all the way up to harvest. So starting off in sowing, and you've got a couple options with sowing broad beans. Firstly, you can sort of do it in October, November time directly in the ground, sort of overwinter them, and then you'll be harvesting maybe sort of late May, early June. The other method that I've done in this video is I sowed mine on the 29th of December, so sort of a quiet period between sort of Christmas and New Year. And basically sowing them's dead straightforward. They're quite big beans, so you want to do them in quite big pots, quite deep sort of depth, about sort of double the height of the seed is how sort of deep I bury them. Once you've done that, basically the plants will grow, and within about, I don't know, maybe a week or 2 weeks, they'll probably look like the picture I'm showing on the screen now. And then about another week after that, they'll look a little bit like the next picture I'm showing. And at that point, you're looking to get ready to think about planting them out.
Now, broad beans are ready to plant out when they're roughly maybe sort of 5 inches high. The reason I'm having to plant these out now is because the root system on the bottom is getting extremely sort of congested to the point where it's quite hard to sometimes get them out of the plug. But you know, these will very quickly sort of establish themselves. So what you want to do is about 18 inches apart, sort of firm them in quite nice. Again, these roots are really going to sort of get out there and explore and, you know, get established. So pretty much that's really it with planting out broad beans. It's not particularly difficult or anything. I'd maybe advise, just while they're very newly planted like this, putting a bit of bird netting over them. I don't particularly have problems with pigeons and broad beans, but if a pigeon does come along and decide to start pecking at it, it's going to pull the plant up and damage it, and it might not recover. So if you're a bit worried about, you know, numbers of plants you've got available and things, I would probably advise protecting it at least until they've maybe grown another couple inches, and then they should be fine.
And these are the broad beans on the 11th of May, and you can see from planting them out as small sort of 6-inch plants, they grow really rapidly to this sort of size. Now there's 3 things I just want to talk about at this stage of the growing, and broad beans aren't hard to grow. There's not really much for you to do, but a couple things to be aware of that might help you out in the long run. So firstly, the flowers. Flowers look beautiful and they're great for attracting bumblebees and things like that. But it's obviously the pollination of the flowers is important, because that's what will produce the bean that you'll harvest. Second thing to talk about is staking. Really important you get your staking done. So broad beans will grow quite tall, and they can sort of support themselves, but eventually, especially when the beans get very heavy, certain arms of the plant will start falling over and things. So all it is some bamboo canes, and what I've got is 2 lots of string sort of going round them. I don't support them in the middle, so there's no support in the middle. They sort of prop each other up, but on the edge of the bed you need to sort of give them some support, otherwise some of the branches might snap and things and you'll lose some plants. And the final thing to talk about is the number 1 pest of broad beans, which is black fly. So black fly will land on these shoots of the plant, this sort of new growth right at the top. So what you can do to sort of prevent this is, once they get to a certain height and they're full flower, snap off that growth. It will stop the plant growing, but it will also stop the black fly having a good place to land. So that's what you can do. But something else you'll also notice is there'll be lots of ants crawling up and down your black beans. Now what the ants are doing is they're farming the black fly, or the sort of black aphid, for honeydew, which they secrete when they feed on the sap. So the ants are actually farming them, and the ants will actually try and fend off a ladybird or something that comes to eat the aphids, but there's not really much you can do about it. All I would advise is maybe taking off the sort of growing tips of the broadbean plants, which is what the aphids are targeting. And yeah, there you go, that's it. So it's June now and we're ready to harvest, and I've got my sort of tray and my secateurs ready to do the harvest, but you'll see just how much growth they do, and that's with me cutting the tops out of some of the plants. So they grow about 4 foot, and in order to know when the beans are ready to harvest, I'm going to have to sort of show you what I'm looking at down below. So in terms of knowing when they're ready, you're kind of looking for the size really, but you can feel the beans inside the pod. So rub your finger along, you should be able to feel the beans, and they should feel quite fat and plump, and it's at that point you know it's ready. Now you can sort of just twist off the pod but you want to be careful you don't damage the plant, or you can use a pair of secateurs or a knife just to snip them off. But I'm going to harvest some of these and then show you what to do next. Now with broad beans, it's not the pod you're eating, it's obviously the beans inside. So once you've harvested them, what you need to do is you then need to separate the tiny little beans from the pods. So just break open the pods and have a bowl or something and pop your beans in. Now, I've harvested quite a few of the really big pods here, but some of the beans aren't particularly massive yet, and they will get a lot bigger as the season goes on. But the idea is you'll do like a couple sort of pickings of the sort of bean plants. I'm just going to show you here how to sort of prepare these. Well, my opinion, the best way for eating. So interesting with broad beans, they do have a kind of jacket on them, which you can then boil and then basically take the bean out of the jacket, and you've got this inside the what you think is the bean. It's like a really tender little kind of green bean that is really nice, and you know, once processed you can sort of freeze them and sort of eat them whenever really. So yeah, I'm just going to sort of process this now, and I'll sort of show you what they look like once they've been sort of de-jacketed. So once you've boiled the beans for about 2 minutes and put them in some cold water, you can basically just gently squeeze them, and you get the little green bean. And this is the sort of bean that you kind of really want to be eating. It's more tender and nicer than this kind of tough outer sort of jacket of the broad bean. So sometimes if you pick the broad beans very young, you can eat this one, but if you pick them when they're a bit bigger, better to do what's called the double podding method, where you basically take them out of their pods, and yeah, you get little beans like that, and they are ready to eat. You can sort of eat those raw, but you know, if you're like me, probably going to freeze them, and then you can sort of throw them into things whenever you like. But yeah, it's quite a sort of nice therapeutic task, this. And yeah, that's double podding. There you go, guys. That is growing broad beans from seed to harvest. Now, in summary, the main points you're going to want to remember is one, that you need to stake broad beans. Otherwise, when they get really big and really heavy with beans or bean pods, they do fall over. And the other thing is to bear in mind black fly. There's not a great deal you can do about it, but if you maybe, I don't know, plant lots of flowers nearby, it's going to encourage sort of predator bugs that will come and sort of eat the black fly. And that's potentially one way to manage the numbers, but otherwise you just got to remove them manually. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed that video, and if you do, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all soon for more videos.